Hey everybody, this is Darren Sabedra again with Mike Lefkow. Mike, it's early in the week as we're getting ready for the fourth weekend of high school football, and this weekend with our rankings just coming out, wow, I mean, I'm looking at it and we've got three matchups pitting teams ranked in our top 10. We'll start off with the game that I'll be covering in Mountain View, where St. Francis, which I think we've got to say is probably the top dog in the Central Coast section right now, going up against De La Salle. The Spartans will be making their first trip of the season, and they're going to go down to Mountain View and take on the Lancers. What do we think about this one?
I think it's going to be a tough game. I think St. Francis has a real good defense, and I think De La Salle will be challenged by that defense the Lancers have. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I think it may even be similar to what that De La Salle-Folsom game was.
Right. Do we give St. Francis much of a chance? I mean, this is a De La Salle team. Obviously, it's well noted and has not lost to a team north of Fresno, from California team north of Fresno since 1991. St. Francis has a history with De La Salle, albeit like everyone else, dominated by De La Salle, but they do have the victory over them in 1989 in Mountain View. I mean, that was many years ago, but. This St. Francis team has a lot of talent.
I think St. Francis has a chance. Again, I think anytime you can hold another offense down, then you always have a chance if you play good defense, because, I mean, it's tough to win if you can't score. So I think if St. Francis plays the kind of defensive game it can, I think it's going to be somewhat similar to the Folsom game that De La Salle played earlier this year. You're not going to get a lot of scoring and one or two breaks, and you could have an upset.
Right. We talked to Coach Justin Allenbaugh from De La Salle today. We were out at De La Salle, and he knows how good this team is, and he knows the stakes. I mean, if De La Salle wants to play in the Open Division, they got to win this game. I mean, this might be the most important remaining regular season game on the De La Salle schedule. If St. Francis were to pull the stunner, you would have to think that St. Francis would vault over De La Salle, and obviously Folsom, given that Folsom lost to De La Salle. Yeah,
I mean, that's a very good possibility, and it's an intriguing matchup. Right. I just think it's going to be a good defensive matchup.
Another top 10 matchup this week. You'll be at this game. It'll be in Clayton Valley at Clayton Valley Charter, where Clayton Valley will play host to Antioch. Antioch off to a 3-0 start. Last year you covered this game, and I remember following you on Twitter, and I could not believe that score. It was something like 48-0 in the first half in favor of Clayton Valley at Antioch. We were just out at Clayton Valley within the last hour or two, talked to Coach Murphy. What do you think about this matchup?
Well, like I'm writing, Antioch has got to be coming into this game with a chip on its shoulder after what happened last year. It was 49-8 after 3 quarters. It was not a competitive game, and admittedly, Antioch had a very bad night. But the thing is Antioch has got to have a chip coming into this game. I mean, they have got to come in wanting to prove that last year was a fluke, because there's no way that Antioch is 41 or 33 points better than.
Yeah.
They don't have talent that's 33 points better than Antioch. And Antioch is the team that's got to come in and prove something this time.
This game, like the De La Salle St. Francis game, has playoff implications. I mean, we were just talking to Coach Murphy over at Clayton Valley, and he said, I mean, if they were to lose this game, that wipes out that Pittsburgh win. I mean, if they win this game, they're pretty much, I would think, a lock going the rest of the way to play in that. They'll be one of they'll be either the 2nd seed or the 3rd seed in the North Coast Section Open Division, which means avoiding De La Salle in the first round and giving yourself a chance to play in a regional and possibly a state championship game. If they lose this one, it throws the whole playoff picture into a mess.
Well, it will throw the playoff picture into a mess, but more than that, I mean, if I'm Antioch, I feel like I'm coming in with something to prove after what happened last year. I mean, not only was the final score 55-22 Clayton Valley won, but it happened at Antioch, and it was 49-8 after 3 quarters. I mean, it was just,
wow.
I can't remember Antioch getting beat that bad, and I've seen Antioch games for a long time. So if you're Antioch, you've got a lot to prove this week. Clayton Valley is a very good team again. They're going to be very tough to beat, especially at Clayton Valley. But in many ways, I think it means more for Antioch than it does for Clayton Valley. I mean, it means a lot for Clayton Valley because of the playoff.
They do not want to. Yes.
But Antioch, just for pride.
Well, I mean, Antioch can play with pride and still lose by a touchdown or 10 points.
Oh, sure, they can lose by a touchdown or 10 points. But, I mean, if they're getting demolished again like last year.
Well, yeah, they don't want that. Yeah, they don't want that. The other top 10 matchup, I guess we're going to break a tie because in our poll, our rankings that came out today, five staff members on this poll, and Serra and Pitt ended up with the same amount of voting points. So they are tied for 5th in our Bay Area News Group Top 25, and they will play on Friday night at Pittsburgh. Serra coming off a win over Elk Grove, but lost its primary running back, David Coker, senior. You hate to see this, but it looks like he might be lost for the season with a knee injury, injured in the 4th quarter of that game. And they'll be going up against a Pittsburgh team that knows it cannot lose another game if it wants to be one of the 4 teams in the North Coast Section Open Division. The Pirates already have 2 losses on the season, including one to Clayton Valley, the well-noted game to Clayton Valley, double overtime, and then on Friday night, this past Friday night at Centennial Corona. What do you think about this matchup?
Well, you have to favor Pitt now that Serra lost the running back. I mean, that's a big
and the
loss.
lines too. We've
Right,
heard about the
right.
lines.
We've heard that Pittsburgh's line is pretty good. Serra's, we're not sure. But you know, the other thing about this game, it puts 2 guys from Bob Lattiser's coaching tree against each other. Patrick Walsh and Victor Galley both went to De La Salle, both played for Bob Lattiser. So they're old friends. They know each other well, and they both want to win this game.
They had a good game last year. Serra covered it. It was back and forth, and Pitt won by a touchdown. That was a really well-played early season game. This one, Pitt, I've got to think they're going to be pretty fired up to try to avenge that loss last week. And in the home game that they've had against another Northern California team after the Clayton Valley loss was the St. Mary's of Stockton, and we all saw what they did there. It was
48-0 at halftime. Yeah, I think Serra's going to have to play the perfect game to beat Pittsburgh, and you know that's never easy to do. I'd have to favor Pitt in this game.
And our Phil Jensen will be there to tell us all about it.
He will.
Yes, he will. Another game that really piques our interest will take place at Palo Alto, where McClymonds, which had a bad loss to a really, really good Liberty team last week. Liberty beat Mac 42-14. They'll be playing against Palo Alto, which at this point I would say is one of the surprise teams in the Bay Area. Yeah, they you know, it's only St. Ignatius and Half Moon Bay, which lost pretty much all of its starters, but the Half Moon Bay win at Half Moon Bay the way it did, what was it, 45-7. I mean, Half Moon Bay won the previous week 42-3 over Jefferson, and you know, people were writing that, you know, Half Moon Bay wasn't going to take much of a drop after, you know, seemingly losing everybody from last year's team that went to the state final, and all of a sudden Palo Alto beats them 45-7. I think this is a pretty interesting matchup.
Well, I think this is one of the most intriguing matchups of the weekend. I think these are 2 teams we're still not sure about. We're not sure how good they are. I mean, McClymonds had a very impressive victory earlier this season over Marin Catholic. Palo Alto has played very well so far. To me, this is right up there with the most intriguing matches of the weekend.
And we will be there as well with Vitas Masica telling us all about it. So 4 really, really good games that we will be covering, but a couple other games we want to note before we wrap this up. Campo going to Rancho Cotati. Rancho Cotati had a huge win last week over El Cerrito. I think it was like 30-7.
Yeah, 30-7.
Campo coming off a big win over SI in the city. Campo, obviously, well, actually, both of these teams are, you know, traditionally strong. What do you think about this matchup?
Well, I mean, I guess you would favor Rancho because the game is up there, but Campo Lindo's a tough team to beat no matter where you play them, and I could see this game going either way. The one thing I will say, I think it's going to be a very close game.
Right. Freedom had a rough loss last week to California. They'll be at home to play a San Leandro team that I believe is coming in at 1-2. Both teams obviously need a win. I think Freedom needs it more, given that they were a top 10 team last week, and then they get beat by 15 points at home against California.
Well, the thing too is that they trailed 42-19 until scoring a touchdown with around a minute to go. So they got handled by California. They got handled big time. And if Freedom's going to be a factor, they've got to show this week that they're a better team than what they showed against California.
Right. Clovis West, I looked at their Max Preps record. I think they're still winless, and they're going up against Valley Christian, which got a big win on the road against Pleasant Valley Chico on Friday night, and now they're coming back home at 1-1 after they opened the season with that tough loss to Wilcox, and now they're at home. Big win, a big game for Valley as they prepare for WCAL play, where they're always in contention.
Well, I mean, Clovis West is always a good team, or you at least think they're always a good team. But if they're coming in 0-3, I mean, this is a game that Valley Christian should win, and if they don't, it would be a little bit of a surprise.
Right. Be sure to sign up for the newsletter. As always, we're going to promote the newsletter. It shows up in your inbox for free. All you have to do is drop your email. You can follow us on Twitter, or we're always sending out the links. So sign up for the newsletter. It comes out every Monday and Thursday. The Monday version recaps the weekend, and the Thursday version previews the weekend. Always check us out at mercurynews.com, eastbaytimes.com. Anything else before we wrap this up?
No, I guess the one thing is, when we were talking about Freedom, give a shout out to California. I mean, they played an exceptional football game. To be up 42-19 at one point late in the fourth quarter, I mean, California has a pretty good team, I guess.
And they're back in our rankings.
Yes, they are.
With the one loss to Antioch. That's
the
it.
Cal Grizzlies. No, I don't know about the Cal Bears yet.
No, you said Cal Bears?
Yeah,
Cal
Grizzlies.
Right. I'm good. You good?
Yep.
That's a wrap.